Deadite fans were in for a treat when they tuned into Creepshow Season 2, which opened with an Evil Dead crossover episode. But how did it come to be? Showrunner Greg Nicotero has given an interview telling all. A PBS TV station is besieged by Deadites when Ted Raimi takes the Necronomicon to be appraised by their resident antiques expert. But they didn't count on a plucky TV executive and an ex-soldier, Norm Roberts. The former Vietnam badass is now a quietly spoken, serene man, a Bob Ross clone. But underneath that gentle exterior is a man who's seen things, and when shit goes south, he'll beat the devil out of it. But before we open up the Necronomicon, smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Forbes published an interview with Creepshow showrunner and Walking Dead FX wizard Greg Nicotero, in which he tells how he took viewers by surprise by bringing Evil Dead into the Creepshow franchise. During the interview, he covers the origins of the script, the responsibility of delivering a show that respected Sam Raimi's universe, and even touches on other horror franchises he'd be interested in bringing into future seasons. I feel like Season 2 has got the heart and passion, but it's fun and pays tribute to everything important to me in my upbringing, from building monster models and watching TV horror hosts to the loving nod to Sam Raimi. These stories all meant something to me. I feel like I've matured 100 years between Season 1 and Season 2. Nicotero muses on how he's matured since last season. I think you can see that in the look of the series. Season 2 is a handsome production with great set design, slick camera work and editing. They're using their budget more effectively, having learned from Season 1. Interviewer Simon Thompson asked, "That's the public television of the Dead story in the first episode of Season 2. It blew my mind a little bit." Nicotero replies, "That makes me so happy to hear that. I worked so closely with Sam on Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. When I read the script, I loved that it was a nod, but it became something else when we got into making it. There's a bit where Ted Raimi starts to float on the Appraiser's road trip set. I put that in, and the camera work with the evil force going down the hallway. They weren't in the script. I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all the way. I even adjusted some of the dialogue, like when Ted Raimi talks about the book being in his family for years and gathering dust in the fruit cellar. Any opportunity I had to buy into the fact that maybe the Necronomicon is a real thing and that Sam and his brothers went off and made this movie with this book, I took it." Watching the episode, you could clearly tell it wasn't Raimi behind the character. Nicotero did include some nods, but I would like to have seen more. Ash vs. Evil Dead did a much better job of aping his style. It had all the hallmarks down pat, but Creepshow has a much smaller budget and tighter filming schedule, only a few days to put each story in the can. They just don't have the time to do the setups needed to fully realise Raimi's style. But you've got to give Nicotero credit for achieving what he did with what little he had. Sam was shooting the Doctor Strange movie, but I reached out to him right before shooting it. Without a doubt, it's probably the most respectful send-up of the Evil Dead universe. Every one of the actors was like, "Fuck man, I love Evil Dead 2. This is so much fun." It was always intended to be a love letter to Sam and Evil Dead. Creepshow's all about paying tribute, little love letters to the likes of EC Comics, Stephen King, George A. Romero, and so many other things. We got to change the Necronomicon just a little bit. We still wanted it to feel like the original, but we also don't want anyone to feel like we'd infringed copyright. I did notice the Necronomicon looked a little different. It had a lock on it for a start. This was different from the original movies, as were some of the illustrations inside. But with only 25 minutes to play with, and the lock provides a nice off switch to bring the story to a swift conclusion. It was different, but yeah, it captured the spirit of Evil Dead. The article goes on to talk about nods to the Evil Dead cast and crew. Even the appraiser's name, Goodman Tappert, is a tribute. David M. Goodman was the transportation coordinator on Evil Dead, and Rob Tappert was the producer. If only I could have got Bruce Campbell down there, steal him out of retirement to do something on Creepshow, that would have been awesome. There's no doubt about it, seeing Bruce Campbell on Creepshow would have been amazing. He's a guy fans just can't get enough of. But here, he might have been a distraction. Instead, we were given Mark Ashworth as Bob Ross clone Norm Roberts, and this was a character I'd like to see more of. The scene where he leads the survivors to stop the Deadites from a live recitation of the Kandarian incantation is fun, but the TV scale of the action means the carnage is a little muted. I, for one, am lobbying for Norm Roberts to return so we can see him go full-on badass. Going back to you paying homage to Evil Dead in an episode this season, would you like to do that with more iconic horror IPs or pick up on previous Creepshow stories? The freedom is the greatest part about it. We talked about potentially revisiting stories from the first Creepshow movie, but that is convoluted in terms of rights. You can't clear it. There are stories that I can guarantee you, especially after you see Season 2 and Season 3, that we would love to revisit and pay tribute to those genres that we love. If I had a way to intertwine a Jason Voorhees story, a Michael Myers story, or a Freddy Krueger story, without having the people that own the rights to those franchises jumping up and down and screaming, I would do it in a minute. Personally, I wouldn't hold your hopes out for any more of the big names of horror to turn up. Jason is too mired in legal worries, but Freddy might be a possibility. Rights to A Nightmare on Elm Street have returned to Wes Craven's estate. They can remake that first film, but maybe there's a loophole that would allow them to spin off from that. Robert Englund recently donned the makeup for an episode of The Goldbergs. I'm sure he'd return for one last outing. It would be great to see Freddy back, and it would help to reintroduce him to a new audience after a lengthy hiatus. I think it's more likely to see something Creator Control turn up, like Don Coscarelli's Phantasm. Nicotero continues, for me it's really fun to be able to take a story and look at it from a different vantage point like we did with Evil Dead. The idea that we can take the horror genre and tell it from a perspective that gives us a completely new take is exciting and allows people to pay tribute to the original material and put a new spin on it. It gives fans something exciting that they can get from the original material. So what did you think of the episode? Did you think it was worthy of being included in the Evil Dead universe? Were you disappointed not to see Bruce Campbell? And what other franchises would you like Creepshow to bring in? Remember to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.